Hello and welcome to A Life of Creation. My name is Chad and I am the host of this channel. Tonight we are talking to Josh Goodell, who is a photographer, gripper, gaffer, and an artist of various mediums. So let's hear his creation story. Just use an overlay. Welcome to A Life of Creation. I'm here with Josh Goodell, a photographer, gripper, gaffer, artist, and several other things. So we're going to hear his creation story. All right, go for it, Josh.
I got my where did I get my start in this? Yeah, I think my creation journey probably starts as far back as my childhood. A lot of time spent with my grandpa, going to their houses in the summer. He was a big painter, so naturally, I think I just kind of, growing up around you just, in some ways, your path is already set. Like you're just, you're influenced and naturally just kind of always got sketchbooks and stuff as a kid. And one thing, it just snowballs from there. So um in terms of like where I'm at now and getting into photography and doing all that probably comes more from my skating background and just always always have a camera in your hand when you're with the friends and you're just kind of recording all the shenanigans and hoping to make a cool video. And um yeah, that journey really just kind of took off from there too. But as far back as I can remember, I've just always been on this creative drive, I suppose. So really kind of just taking it as it comes each day.
Yeah. Um, Now, did you become a professional like inline skater? I know
Yeah,
you were doing some tournaments there for a while.
yeah, I went and competed in some competitions, and my I wasn't as good in contests. I love just being around the groups of people, obviously, and really taking in those moments and just seeing some of the best skating at the highest level that you can.
Right.
But I was always more about going on the road trips and making little tour destinations and kind of really capturing those moments, which probably is even more kind of lends to my style or the things that really interest me in photography.
Right.
A lot of it comes from that background for sure.
Yeah, I think, I've talked to a few people and it's almost like we got into something that really piqued our interest and our, creative juices, but we just weren't good enough in it. So
Mhm.
we ended up doing another aspect that
Yeah,
relates to it.
yeah.
Like I got into music, but I wasn't good at it. So I started shooting it, you know.
And I would disagree. I think you're pretty damn good at it. But
I mean, I wasn't I wasn't ever on a label. I didn't do any tours or anything. So it's just like I wasn't as involved as I would have liked to have been,
mhm,
if that makes sense. Or I wasn't at that peak
yeah,
level or something.
no, I get it.
I mean, yeah, I don't know, but it's interesting how passions kind of fuel passions for other things too.
Absolutely.
I am considered a professional photographer, and I'm kind of embarrassed to ask this because I feel like I should probably know. Um, but what's the difference between a gaffer and a gripper?
A gaffer and a gripper.
Yeah.
Gaffer is going to be more responsible for a lot of the lights and kind of like where it's gonna go. And as a grip, you help facilitate that. So if somebody needs, something put in a specific spot, it's your job to understand kind of weight distribution, what's the safest way to get it up there, what the gear is. Like you're kind of running all the necessary items to help support said light or modifiers, or even, you know, if it's more like frames and things like that, like you're really responsible for just kind of getting those lights in place. So
Okay, so would the gripper be kind of like the gaffer's assistant?
yeah, in a way, like it all kind of it.
Yeah, I mean they're all it's a team. You see all those names, especially in like movie credits. You're like, all gaffer, gripper, sound person. You're just like, how
Yeah,
is there so many of these? I want just that one little job. It sounds cool.
yeah. That
And
I mean, right? I've been so close a few times. I've tried to get into the union. I've been close by like a day and then not gotten the last day, or I've gotten all my days and then not had enough to pay the fees. And it's just kind of been this ongoing process. I think I've maybe attempted to get into the union 3 different times, but I definitely want to, try to work on a feature. It's one of those check boxes for myself for sure. To, I love film, and even more to a lot of the way I like to shoot. I think it tends to come from somewhat of a narrative slash cinematic, as people say
right.
sometimes, look or quality.
When you're doing the gripping and gaffing, are you doing primary video or is it a lot of photo stuff?
It's anymore, it's like a pretty healthy mix because
Okay.
how I've gotten into some of the more motion related things is just being on a photo set. And it's like, oh, we have an interview piece, we have to shoot on top of the key art piece. So it all like kind of comes together in that regard. And then eventually you just make more contacts and they're like, oh, hey, like you're pretty knowledgeable in this. Like, well, it's not that much different. I will say the big difference is switching from photo and video is like the regimented, I don't want to call it hierarchy, but the role of which you're in, like you really got to stay in your lane when you're doing more of the like motion related stuff. It's just kind of like I get it's like an efficient order, and like I said, it's that regimented system. Where in photo, you really are responsible for you can be responsible for everything, whether you're a first or a second assistant. You got to understand how all the stands work. You got to understand on how to get all the lights and stuff up. So when I finally made the switch over and I was getting on more motion things, it was hard for me to not be so hands on all the time because I was always like, and you're not trying to step on toes, you're just more trying to be helpful. And when you're in the photo realm and you're so used to having to at least touch everything at least once,
Right.
um, it's a little bit of, yeah, just like an adjustment period.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you think that's because it's more of like a union thing on like video?
Yeah, I think when you get on those union gigs, it's definitely like kind of stay in your lane.
Right.
And yeah, it's totally dictated by just, the politics of it a little bit. And then some just the old guard, you
Right.
run
Yeah. Yeah. You
cats that,
gotta earn your keep, like earn the respect, and
yeah.
yeah. I was when you're talking like the union, it's like, is there a photo union like that?
No, I don't know if it'll ever be a thing. I know people have talked about trying. I've had some other friends that are also photo assistants. They talk about how it might be more helpful to have a union for us, and especially in the down slumps, like,
Right.
you know, that would, and obviously having health insurance is always like a big deal. So unionizing could help in that regard, but maybe it helps in getting on more motion sets at the same time too. So both departments can work a little better together because there seems to still be this contention at times when
Right.
like there's a photo and a video team and everyone's like, which one's priority? And then once you kind of get that, you know, get out of our way.
Right. Well, I mean, at work we have video and photo all the time together,
Yep.
and usually they're tacking on to the photo shoot, and so I'm very guilty of, all right, next, and they're like, wait, we gotta do video.
Yep.
Um, where on like a freelance job, I'm kind of piggybacking on the video shoot, and I'm always like, don't forget photo, you know,
Yep.
but it's just they're similar, but they are very different, and the needs are very different.
Yep.
Um, so I think someone like you who understands photo and video, you could be a valuable. um, assistant, gripper, gaffer, because would know how to work the strobes if they're using strobes,
Hmm.
and then they're like, well, we saw a video. You're like, well, I know how to light that too.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's definitely helped me a lot in just preparing for some of those more, because now it's like not so much, there's more references to the lead role in photo as being like the lighting director now. Like a lot of that's starting to be referred to as a lighting director as opposed to like a first assistant. And um, I think just in terms of helping a photographer try to bring their vision together, and when you really like what's the look we're going for, and you've played with all these different toys, you have more answers to just like kind of oh, this light would be really good for this situation. It's like a situational thing. Like
Right,
every light is dictated based on kind of the environment you're in, what look you're going for. So the further down that rabbit hole you can go, the more efficient you're going to be at your job. And
right,
it's the answers come to you so quickly as opposed to like, oh, I've never been here before.
right. I want the job lighting director. That just sounds cool.
Yeah. It's I didn't know how I felt about it at first because you're still just a first assistant.
Right,
uh, but it gives you a little bit more. I guess it would be the promotion within the freelance world a little bit. So still getting some used to. I'm trying to be more open to it as opposed to it feeling like this. I just felt like it was pretentious in some way a little bit, but I get it. I get it.
there's no pretension in the photo video world. What are you talking about?
We got enough egos. We don't need to stroke anybody else's.
Yeah, but I mean, lighting director will probably look a lot cooler on a business card than assistant one.
And I suppose a lighting director would, yeah, it's like makes you the gaffer. I'm trying to think of like what the equivalent would be because it's not DP. DP, you're still more on camera at that
Right.
point, camera coordinating with your lead gaff, and um, yeah. But
But would a lighting director need to know how to do like photo and video lights? Is that just a title for a photo person?
I don't think as a lighting director, I don't know if you necessarily need to be savvy in both. Like you would still get a job being referred to as a lighting director even if you didn't have experience in both, but it would set you apart
Right.
for sure. Like just having that experience on both ends because I mean, I was literally just on a shoot the other day where um, the photographer ordered 10Ks and I ended up being the only one that knew how to run like the power and do all the stuff for him. And it's like they kind of got lucky in that regard. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah. 10Ks are a beast.
they're some of my favorites. So they're fun when you get to pull them out. You just
Yeah.
especially when they're the Mole Richardsons and they look cool. It looks like old school Hollywood.
Right. Yeah. We don't have that big of lights yet. We're trying. We want to get some of the aperture 1200 storms,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think, because those aren't quite like the old, big RE lights or whatever, but they're still fun
yeah.
and they look cool. They look like monsters. I love it.
Hmm.
So you're saying like you're seeing more and more photo videos kind of being at the same time.
Yeah, more duo sets, I suppose.
Yeah, I think we're almost strictly duo at this point. I feel like.
And I mean, it makes sense for
Yeah,
you guys have been doing that since I can remember.
yeah,
Every time I was there, you guys were always kind of, I don't even know if it was a matter of one taking priority over the other. You guys just knew you needed one and video
yeah,
team the other one. And yeah, it makes sense.
yeah. And so because of that, I actually only use continuous lights pretty much now
Hmm.
because I'm pretty much the only one doing the lighting. You know, back in the day, I would set up strobes and then the video guy would just like wheel out a Kino or something, Kino Flow or something. And you're just like, oh, come on. I made a cool light at setup and you're just going to throw a floodlight at it.
Yeah.
I'm going to light it, you know,
Yeah.
so that at least somewhat matches. But
Developed the sense of because I've gotten to a point now where I can kind of see the qualities in the strobe and a strobe look, and as opposed to the qualities in like a continuous light. And depending on one, just strobe will always have like a certain punchier look to it. Like no matter how much you try to degrade that too, and in circumstances, it's still there's just like a little bit of pizzazz on it. That
Yeah, I mean it's sharper.
yeah,
It's like you said, there's a punch to it for sure.
yeah,
And that we'll still do it because now it's more like okay, there's a lighting effect that we're going for. You can't really do it with Ari's sky panels because they're just too broad. You need like that harsh, little harsher
yeah.
spotted look or whatever. It's been fun to kind of dabble in that world more.
hmm When you
And
guys are both, um, do you guys ever run into budget issues, or anymore? You guys pretty much just have it dialed.
well, I mean, we have a full in-house video team,
Yeah.
full photo team. Previously, when we were doing both, I think when we were on locations, we were having to get video and like strobes.
hmm
But I think we weren't getting anything too crazy gear wise, so it may not have been too bad. Because I think once we, switched to more just continuous, it was like, well, now we need the big guys
Yeah.
because photo needs the output.
Yeah.
So we may have, I don't know, we may have been pretty even. It's hard to say.
That's always been interesting for me on set too. Like when a gig starts and they're like, this is photo priority. And then usually sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes by the end of it, it ends up becoming video priority. And then your budget really gets cut and you have to like pare down a lot of the stuff that you maybe ended up needing for it. But I find it kind of fascinating. And what I think I like to think that I've gotten a little more efficient at is, when you're on motion sets and they got all of our lights going all over the place, it usually takes a little bit more to get into a place where photo, it's like you can maybe almost get away with one or two lights to kind of mimic what's going on there just based on, you know, having the ability to dial up that power like you can, because you can, half of a pack, not that this is exact science or math here, but, you can get that to look like a 2K or a 5K light, um, not even being full power. So,
Right. Yeah, you have that effect. Yeah.
yeah.
One of the areas that I was running into, and what I really liked about the continuous lights too, was, we shoot a lot of smaller things.
hmm
So if we're using like pro photo packs that are crazy powerful, it's like you can't turn that thing down enough
Oh,
to
yeah.
get the effect you want. Like you can't blur out the background because you still have to shoot like f11.
Yep.
With like REs and the apertures, you can go down to like 5% or
Yep.
something,
Really
which
get
is
off. But sometimes it can definitely be hard to get that little extra bit out of the packs because it's just like even at bottomed out, it still looks a little too much sometimes.
yeah. I remember like having like a just a head to kill half the power. It was
hmm
plugged in, and I made the mistake of putting it face down on an Apple box, and it was just I think even with like the modeling lamp on, and I was like shooting, and then I was like, something smells like it's burning.
Dude, we've all probably been there at some point.
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, probably shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
It's fun to learn that way.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't done it in a long time, but I've definitely melted my fair share of gels back in the day. That's for sure. Just trying to figure out how to, now you learn, right? Like all
Yeah.
failures lead you to where you're at now. So,
So as a freelance gripper gaffer, what's kind of like your typical day? I think it's an interesting occupation. And
hmm
a lot of it is you're behind the scenes. You're not the photographer who gets the glory for pushing the button,
yeah.
but you made that vision happen. Probably more than the photographer, let's
hmm
be honest. As
Yeah.
a photographer, I can say that.
Yeah.
So what's kind of like give me like a day in the life of a gripper gaffer.
Like on set.
Yeah, because I think that'd be pretty awesome to hear.
Well, usually try to get there for breakfast. My first move is heading right to Crafty. I'm grabbing that first coffee and, probably going to go over and drink my coffee and just do like a check down on all the gear just to make sure we have all the little bells and whistles that we need to get things set up. I usually like to try and get a look at some of the inspo boards just to see what people are looking for and really just kind of take that time in the morning to get acquainted with everybody you're on set because Art Stryber, a photographer I work with quite a bit, said it best when he was like, "We're like a circus, we're a carnival. You're just a bunch of carnies that are coming in and setting up this big elaborate thing, and you break it all down. It's like you were never there." So, um, really trying to take time in the mornings to just meet people and kind of like take it in because once the machine starts going, it can be hard to kind of network and make a lot of those connections because you don't always have that time. But and then after breakfast we're usually probably doing a lot of the build outs, doing a rundown of what lighting concepts we're going to be putting together depending on how many different looks we have, if we need to set up for multiple things, and then it's just kind of like turning lights on and off through the day. But a lot of the time building and leading up to the big moment. And I would probably say 90% of the time when you get there, you really only have like 15 minutes. So you'll spend, so much time putting it together, and by the end of it, it's done like that. So honestly, some of my favorite part though is probably wrap up. Just like getting, I don't know why, it's just fun like getting all the stuff back because that's when you can kind of download the day and you can bullshit with everybody that's around and and yeah, it's another good time to network with everybody. And
Yeah.
uh,
And
yeah,
the pressure's off at that point.
pressure's off. Job well done. Maybe not. Maybe that's
Right.
the last time you're going to be working with that client, but
Right.
you tried your best.
Yeah. Yeah. I always enjoy that time too because it's like you feel accomplished. Maybe the first time you took a breath since you started.
Hmm.
And, hopefully there's still some crafty left and you can
Yep.
have a snack and
Oh wait, I should. Maybe it's not wrapping. Maybe it's rating the crafty table at the end of it and going home with
yeah.
your little snacks that you missed out on through the day. That's pretty fun too.
Free food is always the best.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's why I always liked when we shot at Milk Studios when they have the coffee bar
Oh yeah.
tab. And I'm just like, where's Chad? He's at
Yep.
the coffee bar again. I'm just like barely can hold the camera at that point. I'm like, quit moving. But it's so good. And they make great coffee there. It's just like,
They really do.
it's dangerous. Okay, so besides, that world, you do other things.
I do other things. More recently, I've been kind of brushing up on my drawing ability and kind of getting back into that. It's helped influence, if anything, going stepping aside from that, doing a lot of photo stuff has kind of helped me adjust my eye in illustrative work. So now I can like really kind of bring together the lighting, and it goes hand in hand really. I would say my some of my comprehension of lighting comes from drawing, and some of it also comes from the photo world, and they definitely marry together. But yeah, that's been nice to have a side because when the passion, when photography became the career, I suppose, and it's not so much just the hobby anymore. It's important to kind of you still got to do other things to keep that fire going, and I try my best to pull inspiration from so many different sources rather than just kind of staying in one lane.
Right. Yeah. I tell people that all the time. I do music because
Oh,
of that.
such a
So,
big me too. Like that is definitely my whole anything I listen to, and that's it's probably why I'm just all over the place with music. It's totally driven by, and it comes from skating a little bit because I'm always like, oh, I could like make a section to this song, and it's got all these cool like little beats and high notes and things like that. And I think I'm always pulling music just based on I could see a scene going this way. This could be a romantic scene. This could be a tragic scene. And it's a constant source of inspiration for me for sure.
yeah, I think it is important that we, continually fill our cups. Everyone wants that creative job. It's pretty draining, and if you're not filling yourself up some other way,
Yep.
it's hard to like keep producing at the level you should be producing.
Yeah. Well, I mean that well, it's gonna run dry at some
Yeah.
point.
I don't know if it was someone I was interviewing or someone I was just talking to, but like a band that me and my wife liked, we walked out to their song at our wedding. Our first dance was one of their songs, and they ended up breaking up for a while. And their statement was like, we wrote songs about living life, and then all of a sudden we found ourselves in a tour van, just going and playing shows. We weren't living the life anymore. So they're like, we needed to just stop
Mm,
and get back to life.
totally.
Thankfully, they came out and did like a side project band, and they put out a phenomenal record, kind of based on their life after the band. It was great.
What's the band?
The first band was Deer in the Headlights,
Oh, yep. Yeah.
and then they released another album as the Gentle Hits.
I'm not familiar with that. Deer in Headlights for sure, but not so much Gentle Hits. I haven't heard that.
You need to check that one out. It's good.
Oh,
It's the same lead singer, songwriter. The drummer was the same, and then I think they just got some of their other buddies to just
mhm.
kind of jump in and fill in the parts. They just did the one album. I don't think they ever did anything else.
Yeah.
But that dude can write songs.
I mean, that's a whole nother thing too. Like just in the musical world is like I don't know, it's like the musical theory aspect of it that we need to get into that. But like good lyrics, aside from just like melodies and stuff, I feel is that would you say that's kind of the easier part, but having writing good lyrics is the really hard part. That's kind of like the finesse.
Man, you flipped this on me.
Sorry about that.
Lyrics are really hard,
Yeah.
very, very hard, and I think a melody is tricky.
Mm.
But I think if you're able to find a melody, the words come easier.
Okay, that makes sense. Like it's that little pocket.
Yeah, because then you know what to write to,
Yeah.
and like the structure you need. Like I did a couple projects, just like solo things under the name the Hunter Lee Project, and I did an album where I kind of composed them using a program called MuseScore. So I actually wrote out sheet music using that.
Oh,
I
damn.
can't I can't play it or read it or anything, but like the program kind of helps you through it. And so I wrote everything on guitar, basically, like the structure, the chord progression, and all that stuff. But going into MuseScore, you can only play certain notes within the key, right? So it kind of limits you to where you can be.
Yeah.
I'm not to the point where I can, change a flat to a natural or, sharp to a flat or, I'm not doing anything crazy. Just sticking in the key and just playing those notes. You can kind of play around with it. You can play around the rhythm that because I'm not very gifted in rhythm, it was easier for me to figure it out on that. So once I got like a rhythm, I was able to then do a melody, and then I would go back listening to it and then kind of write out lyrics based on that.
I can't. There was like a series. This guy Harishkesh, but he used to go through with a bunch of bands and kind of how their songs came together, and it was a bunch of different breakdowns of it. And I always just I don't want to say it was disappointing, but the one that was very like just straight to the point was the Weezer one because it wasn't what I would expect for them to like make a song, but it was very just like something you would learn in school, I guess. Like a basic formula for writing, um, kind of pop tracks, I
Right.
suppose.
Well, it's
Still,
crazy because I mean, there is basically a formula,
yeah, yeah,
I've done some YouTube University on songwriting, and it's like, man, there's a pattern that
yeah,
everyone just uses, and but that what sets you apart is then the lyrics and the hook, in the
Yeah,
melody, you know. So I forget what the number is, but you know, there's those videos where they're just playing the four same chord progression, and it, you know, turns into 30 different songs. But all of those songs are hits for a reason, and it's all they all have different hooks and melodies and catchy lyrics that went to those four chords. You know, it's crazy.
it really is. I think still to this day it baffles. Like you can still kind of hear undertones through certain things and how it's evolved over the years and how people have gotten into using them differently. But it still blows my mind that people are able to kind of like generate new sounds and techniques through that same, relatively that same formula that you're kind of talking about.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like you could. I mean, look at Green Day. I mean, they really only play the same four chords,
Yep.
but that dude knows how to play those four chords.
Yep.
A buddy of mine is a huge Green Day fan, and he's just like, "Hey, look, this is this song, and then this is this song, and it's the same thing, but it might be just like, you know, they may hang out on the C just slightly longer, or you know, whatever, but it's the
Yep.
same chord progression." He's like, they basically write all their songs in C, and so it's like all of those chords, but he's super talented lyrically. His great hooks, great melodies that are built on top of those, and it's,
Mm,
you know, he they do a good job of what they do.
yep. No, they really do. And their stuff, there's music still stands the test of time, even the earlier stuff.
Oh, Dookie is still an amazing album, and even though I get the name of the one before it, Kerplunk or something, still a great album.
Man, I've been trying to collect all those vinyls recently, especially all the stuff from like the new metal era. Uh, they're hard. I'm not trying to get any repressed stuff like the newer imported things. Like I'm really trying to go to the flea markets and find, you know, the original ones. But back then, especially in the new metal phase, it's more like CDs then. People really weren't pressing vinyl of that stuff. So unfortunately, you're just kind of stuck with the imports and yeah, like what have you. There's I think there's a pretty good company now. I don't know if they're based in the US or not. It's like vinyl something. They do a pretty good job of pressing a lot of that older stuff that wasn't
Right.
so generated back then.
Yeah, there's a couple I've noticed kind of popping up, bringing back some of the more like the '90s,
Yeah.
late '90s kind of my era of stuff.
Hmm.
Um, I think Tooth and Nail Records just released. I don't know if it was. I don't think it was like the order, but they just released a box set of like six like pivotal albums on record that never were pressed.
Dude, I used to have so many of Tooth and Nail mixtapes of just like all the new ones that they were signing to the label for those years or whatever. Like,
Yeah, I mean, incredible label.
yep.
I don't listen to a lot of their stuff now, but I mean that was what broke me into punk, hardcore, all that kind of stuff. Because
Oh
that
yeah.
was what my parents would let me listen to.
Yeah. Did you do the whole like Christian hardcore phase with like Ludacris and Zayo and those guys and all that stuff?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I would still put all of those on.
Yeah.
What's I'm just stoked that you've actually know Norma Jean is ludicrous.
Well, dude, that album to this day is so that I've been hunting for that one because I don't even you can really only listen to it freely on YouTube. I don't even think it's available on Spotify. If last I checked, it's not available on Spotify. That really is kind of like a hidden gem. So if you find like a CD of that, or if you find like especially a vinyl, which I highly doubt there's even a vinyl that exists of that,
There is.
oh my God, that would make my day. That album to me still to this day is so good.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I have the CD and the T-shirt.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, I had a t-shirt for a long time. It got probably just shredded from skating, but
Yeah,
that's probably my favorite for the longest time.
I just pulled out. I have four, I think four bins of T-shirts from back in the day.
Hmm.
I pulled out one and took photos at work of all the T-shirts. I had like old Tooth and Nail ones, the crucified ones, old MXPX one.
Would you have enough to make like a cool quilt out of that?
Oh, dude, I probably have like 400 T-shirts,
Dude.
or probably at least a couple hundred. I had some guy on Instagram hit me up wanting to buy. I think he was interested in an unashamed T-shirt
Mm.
and then a disciple.
Oh yeah.
But
Disciple.
Not Disciple, the like metal band. It was the X Disciple X AD, the
Oh,
hard eerie hardcore
yep,
band, the Good Disciple.
yep.
Um, yeah, I have one of their T-shirts too, if not more. They were one of my favorite bands, but I have so much stuff. So I'm like, I should try selling some of these things.
Well, and a lot of those things that you probably have too, because I think I mean, we're probably kind of in that same little pocket of because
Yeah,
you would only get some of those items, especially the ludicrous stuff, if you were going to the local show in town and
yeah,
you knew, like, and you were buying the merch from the merch table. Like, that was really the only way to get your hands on it because it wasn't going to be going, like where you're getting Deftones t-shirts and Tool t-shirts or anything like that. Like, you
right.
had, that's if you know, you know. Like,
Yeah. I'm trying to remember how I even got that ludicrous. It had to have been through some just like little random mail-in distribution. I don't know if I ever saw them as ludicrous. I don't
Thomas,
know if
because it was
yes.
fast that they changed over from that, and it was
Yeah.
totally because of the rapper Ludacris, I
Yeah.
think. But even though they spelled it so much different, but I get it. They came to my hometown once, and I remember going around in my high school telling a bunch of people that Ludacris was coming, and they they came to the Hearst Center where the concert was going to be, and there was a bunch of people that really didn't listen to hardcore music. And I remember, like, I kind of walk in, I was a little late because I was really only going for their set. And they're like, "Hey, man, you said Ludacris is going to be here." I was like, "Yeah, yeah, they're next." They're like, "They," and I was like, "Yeah, just wait." And by the end of it, at high school, like going back to class the next day, it just became like a big funny joke. But yeah, they were like, "Oh man, I didn't know what to expect out of that," because it didn't look like anybody that was listening to Ludacris when I was at that concert.
So good.
Yeah,
That's probably why they were forced to change their name.
yeah,
It's cool that you got to actually see him as ludicrous though.
yeah. I think the drummer lit his cymbal on fire that night too. Pretty sure he did that.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. They're
Yeah.
animals back then. I think their whole career they were pretty much animals, but
Mhm.
saw Norma Jean a few times. Um,
And they're still putting out records.
I don't know if it was like slightly later than me or they were just like not in the same circle I was going to. So I didn't follow them too closely,
Hmm.
but I remember them and I remember their albums and their songs and you're just like, dang, this stuff is good.
When they made the shift to Norma Jean, though, like when that first Norma Jean album came out, they had like it was definitely like a harder sound where the Ludacris album carried in this like hardcore melodic tone a little bit, and then like Norma Jean just dropped all that, and it was totally just like bangers the whole time.
Yeah, and then they had the song With Me Without You.
Yep.
And you're just like, oh my goodness, I didn't know hardcore could sound like this. It was just an amazing combo. So I think that was the era. I was like, this is amazing. But I don't think they came through town or as much as other places,
Mm.
or they were just a higher level than the shows I was going to.
Mm.
Because I was trying to just go to shows I could get in for free.
Can I come shoot?
Right. Give me a t-shirt. I'll shoot your band.
Yeah. Oh, okay, we'll get you on the list. I had some friends that had bands back home too. And I mean, I always tried to pursue getting into music. It just wasn't. It didn't fully become my thing. Like, I was okay, and I could play bass and kind of cover some songs and write a couple songs, but it never really progressed into anything serious. But some of my other buddies that went on to really get really talented at it, oh, I'm getting all hit with nostalgia now. I just miss some of those. Something about, like, you feel so special going to shoot those moments, and then like you're on the list, and like you just, yeah, it's like got kind of the inside track a little bit.
I would say even today, if I get a photo pass to a show,
Hmm.
I mean maybe more so now that I'm not doing it quite as much, but it's feels special. Like it's still a special feeling.
Doing it quite a bit when I was still coming and shooting it. Like, I feel like you were at least maybe once a week or something. Like, you were a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it was once I had our first son, I kind of paused and was like, I'm getting paid like $50 to
Hmm.
go shoot a show.
Yeah.
I just didn't feel right leaving my wife with our, you know, very new baby, or even just it got to the point where I'm like, I just feel bad because at the time my wife worked. Evenings were the only time we saw each other. So it was like, I'm leaving, barely getting paid. what's the point? Because then I get home and I have to stay up until 2 or 3 a.m. editing
Yeah.
and then get up and go to work, you
Yeah.
know? And then I'm just tired and it's just like, eh.
Yeah. No, I get it.
So it was just more of a shift of priorities. And, but what was cool is, you know, as I shifted out of shooting concerts and stuff, I kind of also took a step back and was like, all right, music is important to me. So let me focus on playing music. And I'm able to do that at home.
Yep.
It's like write songs, play guitar or whatever. So it allowed me to kind of, work on my songwriting skills.
Hmm.
Being for my entirety of music playing, I was only in punk and hardcore bands. So being at home and having to be somewhat quiet and just playing acoustic guitar, kind of freed me up to just kind of write songs to write songs.
Hmm.
I think I almost get more out of that than shooting the show at this point.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's just like a progression of it too for yourself, like your
Yeah.
natural evolution in that world. And it's nice that they, coincide like that. Is Solid State still a label?
It is. I don't feel like they have a huge roster though.
Because they were signing everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Huge.
think Tooth and Nail in general has just kind of scaled back a ton.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to a bunch of that stuff now.
Yeah. It's so fun. It's still fun. I mean, not all of it, really holds up. Some of it's like pretty cheesy or whatever, but as a young kid who could his parents would only let them listen to Christian or stuff like that. It's like I was blessed to have so many good bands back then.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy. Like Old Tooth and Nail, most of those old albums still hold the test of time.
Yeah. And is it interesting how they like kind of come back around for you now? Like you probably like younger generations now starting to play some of that stuff.
Right.
And like I've kind of run into some of the younger generation, they listen to a lot of stuff that we grew up with, but then like they kind of try to educate you on it a little bit, like because you're maybe viewed as like being old, and you're like, no, 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 no. Like I was around when this like first started. Like I lived this.
Yeah. Well, I think that kid on Instagram, eh, I was like, talking to him about it, and then I think he's like, "Yeah, man, I'm like 15, whatever. It's
Hmm.
cool." I was like, "What? How does a 15-year-old know about Unashamed and Disciple from Erie, Pennsylvania?" Like who's your dad? Was he in a band or something? I mean, I tried putting on this stuff for Mike Boys, and they're just like, look at me like, what the heck is this?
Yeah,
Turn that crap off.
no, you just got to keep exposing, and then the ear will shift.
Yeah. I mean, I think my youngest is actually kind of turning around to it a little bit. I think he likes the energy of it.
Hmm.
And I think the what I want to do is kind of show him more of the videos
Yep.
and like look how fun this is.
Yeah, provides a whole different context.
Yeah. Like it's not just noise coming out of a speaker. It's like it's a thing.
Hmm.
People are having fun.
It's an energy. It's an emotion. Like let it, kind of grab you a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think once they see more of that, it'll probably kind of click a little bit.
Yeah, that's cool, man. That's got to be so fun to watch.
I would say that's probably my best creation is my two boys. Being a dad to boys is definitely fun.
Hmm.
Very challenging, but it's rewarding.